Hello there, friends. Welcome back to a very exciting episode of Coffee and Wrestling, a wrestling podcast. I am one half of your host, and also joining me is the other host of Coffee and Wrestling, Mark.
And I think you forgot to say your name. Your name is Jamie.
Oh, I did not say my name?
Yes.
I am.
It's all good. It's all good.
Jamie.
We're on a rip, much like we always are here on Coffee and Wrestling, a wrestling podcast. We are over-caffeinated, underappreciated, but full of love for wrestling. And we got a lot of wrestling for you tonight. We are post WWE's Crown Jewel. I'm not even, you know what? I know every podcast says we're going to jump right into it, but we're literally going to jump right into it. Crown Jewel happened this past Saturday. Jamie, unfortunately, was not able to get to see the first two matches. We still got to go back and review the full match. I know you wanted to watch them. But we ended up watching the highlights for her, and so it was a decent pay-per-view. It was worth the $9.99. I think that's what we're paying for
Peacock for the month, yeah.
But it went practically exactly how I expected. It was short of one match, and that's not like a flex on whether I guessed right on predictions or not, which, by the way, I did only get one incorrect. I got Bianca Belair was my pick for the WWE Women's Champion against Io Sky. But unfortunately, you also got the Logan Paul Rey Mysterio match incorrect.
I did.
Therefore, resulting in a draw and
thus
allowing me to
retaining
keep my Coffee and Wrestling Predictions Championship.
Dudley Boy's mug.
I digress. It was an okay pay-per-view. There wasn't any standout matches. It really did feel like, it did feel like it just went the flow of what WWE needed to do.
Right. Just trying to get the Saudi Arabia on board with the pay-per-view, trying to get assets. Oh,
they're on board. They all showed up, and I know the criticisms of the crowd being a different type of crowd. It's just the way that they react and how they don't cheer the whole way through the match. They're more of a crowd that waits until something happens.
Yeah,
it's different. It takes a little bit to get used to, but I gotta give it to them. Like it's not like there's huge sections missing in Crown Jewel, so I can't think it's anything less than a success for WWE. I mean, they always look like they have a packed house there.
Oh, for sure.
Saudi Arabia constantly shows up.
People showed up. I wish they were up with their volume a little bit more. I wish there was more momentum in the crowd, thus giving it back to the people in the ring.
I understand, but I feel like that same criticism's towards Japanese professional wrestling crowds.
It can be like that too. They're very quiet.
They're not a crowd that cheers for 3/4 of the time, of the way throughout the entire match, and then cheers at 100% when something impressive happens.
Right.
They're a crowd that very intently watches the match until something exciting happens, and then they cheer for it. So I think it's just a different culture. So it takes a little bit to get used to, but they came out, they looked very excited for everybody to be there. When they did pop, boy, did they pop. And I mean, LA Knight had probably one of the biggest pops.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Definitely bigger than Roman Reigns when he came out.
A lot of boos.
But I gotta ask, if we talk about LA Knight, we talk about Roman Reigns. Obviously, LA Knight did not or was not successful in gaining championship gold for the first time in WWE.
As we predicted.
Roman Reigns, of course, retains his belt, retains his title as the tribal chief. So now we're kind of on the build to WrestleMania 40. Like, I mean, we've got Survivor Series coming up. We've got, Royal Rumble is in January, I believe.
Yes,
in Tampa, and we've got a couple things building up to it, but I don't see any like major obstacles as of right now between now and WrestleMania 40. And assuming that we're going to see WrestleMania 40 be Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes for the undisputed championship, how are we going to get there? Are we going to have another 3 months of Roman Reigns not being on TV and just being in the outskirts and being mentioned?
That would be predicted, as that has happened several times in the last year, that he'll have one match and be out for 3 months. So that's possible.
Okay, so he's had his one match, so he's going to be out for the next 3 months.
Sure.
Which puts us in, let's see, this is the beginning of November.
February, end of Royal Rumble.
Right back when he sees whoever ends up winning the Royal Rumble
That's what
WrestleMania match.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I could see, but then and then we're just going to tease Cody Rhodes and again, this is assuming if Cody Rhodes is going to be his opponent at WrestleMania 40, and nothing's official, nothing is set in stone. It's WWE, it's wrestling. You could just change it at the well, I'm going to have a match against you, and whoever wins gets your shot at WrestleMania.
Sure.
I don't know what else, and I feel like we do this every time that Roman Reigns wins at these premium live events. And
what's that? Where do you go from here?
Yeah, what do you do now? LA Knight came in, and it was, I mean, yeah, everybody wanted to see LA Knight face Roman Reigns, but I don't think the vast majority of people really thought that LA Knight was going to walk away with the belt.
Sure, probably just good intentions, hoping that he would finally.
I mean, definitely puts him over,
right?
But yeah, just because obviously the crowd was leaning into LA Knight heavy.
Of course. Well, if you go with what I was saying last week, you continue with the Bloodline storyline, and if it progresses to Solo facing Roman, that would make a lot of sense, especially with what just happened here at Crown Jewel this past weekend, with him essentially retiring John Cena,
destroying John Cena.
Yeah,
hit him with 3 Thunder Thumbs. What does he call those? I can't remember what they are.
Samoan Spikes.
Samoan Spikes. I don't know why.
Thunder Thumb. No, that's so much better. Thunder
but yeah,
Thumb,
supposedly retires John Cena. Okay, but before with Crown Jewel.
Yes.
Obviously, I have 2 questions here. I said, what's your biggest duh match? And I feel like that's the Roman Reigns LA Knight match. That's like, well, duh. Of course, that's going to be the match that. Of course, that's going to be the outcome that Roman Reigns wins.
Sure.
What was your biggest surprise match outcome of this? And I know you, and I know you got Rey Mysterio and Logan Paul incorrect with your predictions, but were any of these matches like one of those ones that were like, wow, I can't believe that's how the direction they went with it?
I guess the only thing I can think of is that Logan Paul, Rey Mysterio match, because I really thought it would be more centered around Rey having the majority of the match, them doing, a couple of interesting clickbait TikTok videos.
Some Logan Paul-esque moves.
Yeah, and then somehow Logan Paul just getting away with something stupid and him winning, which is obviously what did happen in a sense. But it just seemed more very one-sided towards Logan Paul, just beating the absolute shit out of Rey, as opposed to the way I thought it was going to go. Also, why did Santos throw the brass knuckles?
He didn't even throw him. He placed him gently on the apron.
Ring.
Like he chased after, I don't even remember who he was chasing after, but he just gently,
Logan's friend.
Yeah. He gently places him on the apron. Number one, why would you even set them down?
Yeah, right.
Why would you set them there? And
you gave the opportunity for Logan to do it. But also, there's another question here, and go ahead.
No, well, I'll let you finish.
Why does he need brass knuckles when he's got this like titanium hand? This one punch, I'll knock you out. Why does he need brass knuckles?
I got one up for you.
Okay.
Beyond why does he need brass knuckles? Why does he have this magic pan in his hand? Why? And you even said it. Logan Paul had the upper hand almost the entire time because
he did.
Logan Paul is like 2 feet taller, 1.5 feet longer. I think he was like 40 some odd pounds heavier than Rey Mysterio. Why did we have a weigh-in
I thought that
like
was
it was a weight class and like it mattered how much these two weighed?
The only thing I could think was because Logan Paul is a boxer, so they thought they would kind of do that.
Understandably,
it didn't work when Cody Rhodes and what's his name tried to Anthony Gogo or whatever.
The same thing, even that. There's no weight class divisions in WWE or even AEW. There's no middleweight. There's no cruiserweight.
But they wouldn't have been in the same class.
It was like a 43-pound difference. I think Logan Paul was like somewhere around 215, and Rey Mysterio was like 175 or 170. Like that's a massive amount of difference. And the height and reach, like, come on,
substantially different.
And again, I went with Logan Paul winning because to me, again, it makes sense in a business sense.
It does.
But if you're to look at this as like any type of combat sport, like, my God, I wish that Rey would have had more oomph to his match, to where he was doing everything right. He was defying the odds of the great green giant trying to like stomp on little mini Jack.
That's what I thought it was going to pan out to be.
And they had a couple of good spots. Like, don't get me wrong, they had a couple. And I props to Logan Paul. You showed me that clip where Rey Mysterio did the flip off the ropes, and either he cut short or Logan Paul wasn't in the spot. but Logan Paul dove and was able to catch Rey Mysterio inches before he landed on his neck.
Right.
So, I mean...
Props to him. I mean, he
props
got
to
it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got, like... I'm sitting here criticizing Logan Paul strictly because I'm not a big fan of Logan Paul. I understand why they put the belt on him. I understand why he's on WWE television. I think it rubs me a little bit of a wrong way because it's one of those ones where he's just a dude that showed up and was popular somewhere else and got all of the accolades and the stage that other men and women have fought for 20 years to get. And I know that's probably a petty argument for somebody who does a podcast in his bedroom with his wife while drinking screaming hot coffee, and but at the same time, it's just like, to me, it cheapens the product. And I know we're talking WWE. It's already probably the most watered-down wrestling product known to man right now. But it even cheapens it even more. Like, you've now taken the United States title and made it like, oh, this is a novelty. Logan Paul won it.
Exactly.
I'm not mad at the decision. I guess
long-term, I can see why they did it.
Right.
It brings perhaps a different group of people to the WWE platform because now they're like, oh, I want to see... Logan Paul performing on, SmackDown.
Anybody who's a Logan Paul fan that has any remote like history with the WWE or professional wrestling is going to see that and be like, "Oh man, I remember the United States champion." Let me go back. Like, let me check this out. Let me see what Logan Paul's doing now that he's in WWE. And,
right.
Bring somebody in. It's going to hook somebody. It's going to get somebody to start watching. It's going to bring up the numbers.
Of course. Didn't make Ray look good.
But I mean, Ray could. He can take the loss.
He can.
He can take the loss at this point in his career. But yeah, I think this is also going to build towards like the breakup between LWO and Rey Mysterio, and we'll see slowly Rey Mysterio finally take his final ride off into the sunset.
Singles.
Yeah, and that's just I think they're going to have another match between him and Dom. I think that's honestly how he's going to go out. I think that's the best. I think that's what we're all hoping. Best case scenario, that's how he's going to go out. But going back to Crown Jewel, we also saw the return of Kairi Sane. She came back and assisted Io Sky in defeating Bianca Belair. So of course, that means I was right. Bianca was going to win, but Kairi Sane ruined it for me.
Too bad.
Kairi Sane.
You won either way, so.
I mean, it was a draw. It's not a Warriors win.
Right.
I want to beat you.
It's a champions
win. I want to make sure it's decisively known that I am better than you at this.
Right.
So.
And I don't know that, so.
A draw doesn't do it for me. So.
Okay.
Kairi Sane is number one enemy of Coffee and Wrestling podcast.
Okay.
May she always have decaf in her cup.
I agree.
But we did see her back, so good to see her back in WWE. It's been rumored for weeks and weeks and weeks after she left Stardom that she was on her way back. Earlier this week, it was said that she is listed on the internal roster for WWE. But of course, it's all hearsay unless we physically see it. And lo and behold, we see her debut at.
She's going to be working with Io Sky again.
So yeah, it seems like that's the case. I wonder what they're going to be doing with Damage Control then.
I don't know. They've been hinting at breaking that up for a long time, although Bayley hasn't done anything to jeopardize Io to make Io not necessarily want to be friends with Bayley. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Dakota's out, so it's not like that would be a good thing. Just have Bayley and Dakota. It's not like Dakota's going to be a hype woman or something. So.
Well, I mean, Bianca did just have that match with Bayley this week as well.
Right.
So it's I don't know. It seems like that this might be the wedge that pops Io Sky out of Damage Control, and with Dakota, like you said, with Dakota being out, it might just dissolve into Bayley just being Bayley.
Yep, just being on her own
eventually
again.
Dakota will come back when she comes back, and then Io teams off with Kairi Sane, and they revitalize the Raw Women's division. Then they go head-to-head with Rhea Ripley and her other SmackDown cronies, and everybody wins. I don't know. Rhea's not on SmackDown.
Why would she be on SmackDown? Yeah, I don't know. Say SmackDown cronies.
Well, then fine.
Hurrah cronies.
Oh, no, that's right. Io Sky's on SmackDown.
Right.
I'm getting my brands mixed up. I don't know. See, they had that brand split, and now the brand split doesn't matter. The only reason that matters is the champions.
It doesn't. Did Logan Paul get drafted?
I don't know. I know he signed a contract.
Is he on a show?
I don't know.
Is he going to be on, like...
Raw, Imperium is on Imperium is on Raw and that's the Intercontinental title. So I guess Logan Paul's on SmackDown. That would only because he's the United States champion.
Okay.
And he's feuded with Roman. And he's feuded with
Well, and that's
Ricochet.
where Ray was SmackDown, so that would make sense.
So yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember seeing him
I don't think he was
drafted.
I don't think he was drafted. Well, yeah, that's a good point. If he wasn't drafted and he got put on the roster after the fact, right? And nothing had to change, but Jay changed brands and they had to even it.
I had this big stink about evening it up, even though it's not even.
It's almost like the rules aren't real in wrestling.
Even. No, it's exactly.
Another interesting thing that happened in Crown Jewel, Cody Rhodes and Damian Priest had their singles match. Cody Rhodes ended up winning over Senior Money in the Bank. But
who didn't have said Money in the Bank.
Right, he got it taken away by Sami Zayn after Seth Rollins' match. When Seth Rollins beat Drew McIntyre, he came out, went to cash it in, and Sami Zayn jumped the barrier, beat the hell out of him, and stole his Money in the Bank contract. So now,
they never really touched on that.
On what, on WWE?
After the fact that
right, that was it, and they mentioned it during his match with Cody Rhodes. So first off, Damian Priest is having a bad day. Lost to Cody Rhodes, as well as lost his Money in the Bank contract, and I'm pretty sure that even though, number one, if he has not signed that contract, at least his portion of it already, he's an idiot. Because now Sami Zayn just took this contract. If there's no signature on it, it's like a title to a car. If I don't sign the title to the car and you pick it up and you sign the title, it's your car.
Right.
It's the same. Like, to me, I feel like it's the same thing. So if he hasn't signed it yet, that means Sami Zayn has just stolen himself a number one contenders match.
And why hasn't anybody ever done this before?
I'm sure somebody has. Somebody has to have at this point. I don't know if that's the case, but I like it. I saw it when it happened. I was like, okay, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I was really kind of hoping he was going to cash in and win over Seth, though. Like, he started coming out, and I was like, oh, that would be real interesting.
Right at the beginning.
Well, he's a tag team champion. Mm-hmm. You've got Rhea is the women's world champion.
Right.
You have Finn Balor. You have Dominic Mysterio, who's the NXT North American champion. I just keep piling gold on those guys. I think Judgment Day is the way to go right now.
I mean, it
just
sure
keep
makes them look
gold.
dominant.
Well, they don't look that dominant after this pay-per-view. I mean, Rhea did after her match.
Right. I missed that, unfortunately.
Yeah, but again, I think nobody else would have been able to get that win, and it makes sense.
Shouldn't.
I mean,
shouldn't.
Maybe not now. I'm not saying any four of those women shouldn't be a world champion,
right?
But
just
now,
not right now
with the momentum she's got, no way.
And the momentum that they're trying to push with the Judgment Day as well.
Oh yeah,
it would just be a bad thing for what essentially is their leader to be stripped of her title.
I'm telling you, she's the BBEG. She's the big bag evil guy. She's
gotta hold that
she's
strap.
the final boss of Judgment Day.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, once all other sub bosses have lost their championship belts, she's going to be the last one standing tall and taking Judgment Day down in a burning ship.
Tiamat, no doubt.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Also on Raw and SmackDown this week, we saw again more, I guess, new faces to the brands. Not new and pretty deadly. Pretty deadly ended up getting a win over the Brawling Brutes in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. Good old-fashioned. Which, if you...
It was fun, actually. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and if you don't know what that is basically you just put a whole bunch of bar decor around the ring and with a bunch of glasses and fake beer. It's really like, when the first time I heard about it, I was like, this is the corniest thing ever, and now I absolutely love it. I think it's just kind of a good gimmick match.
It's a very violent match, though, especially between these two.
But it's PG
teams.
Violent. It's
for sure.
They got the
really
movie
good.
Star breaking bottles. They've got boards that are pre-cut.
I
love it.
I meant more like the actual wrestling itself between these two teams was.
Oh, they're both
hard-hitting
matches or hard-hitting tag teams. I mean, you got the Brawling Brutes already, and then Pretty Deadly. I think that's the shtick. Is
their thing.
They're so like fluffy and outgoing and soft and squishy when you first see them, and then you get them in the ring, and they're pretty deadly.
They are, yeah.
I just. They got a good win over a solid tag team that's been on Raw for a good minute, and then over on SmackDown you had the Creed brothers. I think I've got that backwards again. The Creed brothers was on Raw, Pretty Deadly was on SmackDown, but the Creed brothers got a really good win, just a singles or like a tag team, straight up, no gimmicks, it was just the Creed brothers versus Alpha Academy, and they got a good win over them.
I
And
was shocked when
They
they
even
won.
celebrated after the match at Alpha Academy, like raised their hand.
Which is huge.
Again, more faces that we see on the main roster
This
that have
is
already
good.
had
I
an
mean-
established. I feel like the NXT roster right now is a good, solid roster, and they're like just months away from slowly shifting from the NXT talent they have to the newer stuff that's got to be coming in.
Exactly.
And I think this is a great way to do that, is they give these guys good wins against good tag teams that are over with the crowd, that can give a good push to these young guys that need it. Like the
Exactly.
Creed brothers, it's really good for professional wrestling. It's really good for the WWE product.
I agree.
And there's been a lot
It's
of it
fresh
lately.
talent. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn are trying to challenge for the tag team championships. I know they're obviously
The cursed
on the brand,
ones.
but they were dressed
love-
up like Chucky and I don't remember what they.
Well, they're the spoopy bitches of WWE, and I love it because they're leaning really hard into that. The tag titles are cursed, and I think they're leaning into where they're the ones that cursed it,
Right.
which I just think is fantastic. Taking something that has been such a negative and turning it into storylines, so you can not explain the bullshit that happens with it, but at the
Right.
same time give
Kind of having fun and giving some like
take.
seriousness to what it could be instead of like looking at it as a downfall, kind of playing into it a little bit. into
Yeah,
the
turn a
character
negative into
and-
a positive.
Yeah, I like
Creating
it. I like it.
into character development for a tag team belt.
Right.
They've been cursed, and the only way they're going to be able to break this curse is to them getting the titles.
Ah, too bad you don't have Danhausen over there.
No, he places curses. I don't think he ever actually gets rid of the
He
curses.
doesn't revoke curses.
I've never heard of him. Oh no, I've heard of him. Yeah, he takes it back. But I mean, I don't think he goes around like, oh, you're cursed. Let me. Like that doesn't feel like Danhausen shtick. I feel like Danhausen would just
Pay him enough human monies.
I mean, yeah, you paid Danhausen enough human money, so he'll try to do anything for you.
All right, well, actually, that's a great segue to just head on over to AEW and talk about what's going on there this week. Something that started off, per usual, Dynamite this week. Anytime there is an Orange Cassidy match, and it always starts off the beginning of the night, which is
I love it.
really fun.
I don't know why I love it, seeing Orange Cassidy as soon as they start the
Right?
shows.
We didn't have to wait very long for Orange Cassidy to come back with another reign with the International Championship.
I think he's up to 8 defenses now already.
Something
6,
like
something
that.
like that? I don't know.
He took on
Almost double
quite
digits.
a competitor this week in Claudio Castagnoli. Very few times in Orange Cassidy's reign, both reigns, have I thought, that this could possibly be the end of it.
Oh yeah, of course you're gonna have those
Claudio's
matches. You're
just
like, oh yeah, duh, he's
huge.
gonna win. But
Absolutely possible that was going to happen, but it actually didn't. Orange has continued to be the champion. It is just kind of a continuation to help with Jon Moxley. Obviously, there needs to be some type of rematch there with Jon Moxley and Orange Cassidy because that didn't get to happen yet. But that will be happening here at Full Gear, which is November 18th. Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy Part 2
for the International
for
Championship.
the International Championship. Correct.
Moxley came out and attacked Orange Cassidy after the bell, after he got the win over Claudio. One thing I noticed about Claudio's behavior, and this might just be me reading into things too much, he almost seemed like he just kept his back to what John was doing and wasn't really like trying to join in until he was like done being disgusted with what went on, and just I don't know. I might just be
Kinda
reading into
weird
things.
vibe.
Yeah,
no,
just
I felt the same way, honestly.
and then especially last week when we had the end of I believe it was Dynamite, when we had Best Friends and BCC in the ring, and I know they were trying to sell the Bryan
orbital
Danielson's
injury.
injury, but knowing that it was a shtick and not an actual like injury. Interesting to see BCC starting to not just go hog wild at the end of matches and trying to destroy everybody within sight.
Yeah, like they used to.
They've got a little bit of restraint. Granted, Jon Moxley came out and beat the ever-living hell out of Orange Cassidy, but Claudio didn't immediately jump in and start stomping the hell out of him as
Right.
well.
I
It's
also
like
thought that was
everything's
odd.
kind of dialed back. And of course, that's there to build between John and Orange to this match at Full Gear. And again, I might just be reading into things too much because I try and pay attention to the stupid details that nobody else sees, and then I realize they're not actually details. They're just me making things up in my
Right.
my imagination. But you know what I mean? Like, it just, maybe we might be seeing the dissolution of BCC here shortly, because Bryan's on his last full-time year, and he's already dealing with another injury.
He said, I believe, 2 orbital fractures when he had a video segment this week come out calling out Okada for Wrestle Kingdom.
Wrestle Kingdom 18. I believe that is November 8th. I'm sorry, not November 18th. January. This is one of NJPW's biggest pay-per-views of their year. This is going to be probably one of Bryan Danielson's best matches.
Knowing it's one of the last. Yeah.
Knowing it's one of the last, and knowing that it's in the mecca of professional wrestling
and I think it's at
history.
Tokyo Dome. Yeah.
It is at the Tokyo Dome. And like I said, Wrestle Kingdom is like NJPW's equivalent to their WrestleMania.
Right.
So to have him on this card is huge to begin with.
Right.
But you'll see like the match between I believe it's going to be Sonata and I can't remember the name of the guy that won the G1 Summit, but the shot that he gets for that for that championship. You know, this is one of their biggest shows, and to have just a singles match because it's a grudge match on there's
right
going to be huge.
Wasn't
for Bryan.
Evil that won the G1?
I don't know if it was. I don't think it was Evil. I think he was one of the finalists, but I don't think he ended up winning.
Okay.
It's I can't remember it. I feel like an idiot now that I even brought it up. But regardless, we can press on. Bryan Danielson, Okada, Wrestle Kingdom 18, January.
Seems so soon to have such a big rematch like that.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be at like 3 a.m, and I will be up with double extra coffee watching that.
Espresso shots, watching the details.
I do agree with you, especially after having his arm be injured.
Right.
And then it seems like immediately after his arm seemed like it was almost fully healed or is full healed, he immediately gets a freak accident. We found out bumped heads with Andrade El Idolo in his match against Bryan. When he went to do a spinning back fist, and just their two heads were in the wrong spot at the wrong time, and you can see it clack together, and that's where it happened. It wasn't actually at the Okada match, or the Okada tag match that he was in.
Fourth wall.
I know, right?
No.
But, just for somebody who's run off of one injury that could have been a lot more serious than it was, into another one that could have been a lot more serious than it was.
And then right back January facing Okada.
Right, and we're talking
Japan.
This is what, like November 5th, 6th. So we've got November, December, and then half of January?
Right.
It's 2.5 months. I mean, it's not out of this world like unthinkable.
Right.
But that's still a short period of time for fracturing your eyeball.
Yeah.
Hey,
Wrestling Coffee, I think it's your wife's birthday today, so
oh, happy and birthday!
Something close.
Happy and birthday, Mrs. Wrestling and Wrestling and Coffee. There we go. That's a mouthful.
Birthday, yeah.
Also, this week on AEW programming, we had the Young Bucks and Adam Page defending their ROH Trios tag titles against the Gates of Agony and Brian Cage.
6-man tag teams.
Six-man tag. I don't know. I can't remember all these goddamn belts. Surprisingly, I guess maybe not surprisingly, but due to Swerve Strickland kind of really fucking with Adam Page lately, was able to get him away from the match and gave the Gates of Agony and Brian Cage a chance to take out the Bucks, and they regained their 6-man ROH tag team titles.
Well deserved.
And then we saw some dissension between the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, as Kenny Omega has sided with Chris Jericho to go up against the Don Callis family. Young Bucks are not super happy about it.
Heel Bucks,
face Kenny. I don't know what we're doing with Adam Page. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Page has a match with Swerve Strickland, which he has it at Full Gear, and ends up turning heel and joining Swerve Strickland.
Sure.
I mean, they just recently, quote unquote, fired AR Fox, which great match between AR Fox and Swerve Strickland on I think it was Collision this week, wasn't it? Yeah, it started off Collision, which, by the way, Collision, I love those promos they do in the beginning.
Well, and that's where it stemmed from. They had like the beginning promo, and AR Fox immediately attacked Swerve. They did the intro to Collision with the Saturday Elton John,
Saturday.
the promo with all the wrestlers on it for the intro, and then it just jumped right into the match, and that was really fun. I really liked that. Collision is just, it feels so different.
It does. It doesn't
in
feel
such a
like
good way.
Obviously AEW is a completely different machine than WWE. WWE, we were talking about this earlier, you and I. WWE has a certain way about them to shoot their material, to present their material, and AEW has the same but different. They just have a certain way the lights are. They have a certain way they shoot cameras,
right?
And then backstage promos, same thing. But then even then,
just different.
Collision feels like a different show from Dynamite.
It does.
Dynamite feels like that tried and true. It almost feels like Dynamite's your Raw, and Collision is SmackDown when it first debuted. You're like, oh, it's SmackDown. Like, what do you mean SmackDown? Like,
right.
that's
kind of edgy, different.
Yeah. Not that
Collision's are different.
Not that Collision's any different wrestling wise than Dynamite, but yeah, it creates a more. I don't know. I don't know what kind of atmosphere it
like
brings.
A separate brand from
right.
What WWE, like you said,
same
had
umbrella,
previously
different
done.
company.
Exactly. We had a very exciting celebration this week as the Acclaimed are celebrating 69 days
69
as being trios champions.
69 in, they're scissoring.
Oh yeah,
there's
Billy
banners,
Gunn's there.
there's balloons.
He's making jokes that don't make sense. It's just
what
fantastic.
are you talking about? That's what daddies do.
That's what daddies do.
That was such a good line. I love. I mean, Billy Ass has always had that borderline, like, you can't say that, can you?
Of course.
But I love that he's still running that shtick. They're finally like bleeping out the suck it when he says that right before he does the famouser. 69 days.
They're laughing.
I never knew we could have so many celebrations for one title run.
Well, when you're that good, you can celebrate every single thing.
Well, it is Acclaimed every week.
It is Acclaimed every week, and everyone loves the Acclaimed, except apparently this week, the boys in Dalton Castle.
Boys!
Bring me a boy.
That's peaked terribly. Holy shit.
Bring me a
Dalton Castle and the boys. What is it? The Cosmic Peacock? I don't remember what his hundreds of nicknames he is, but I love it.
Phenomenal.
Every time Dalton Castle comes out, I'm glued to my TV. I love Dalton Castle. I love the boys. I love the gimmick. I love the over-the-top goofy wrestling. It tickles me funny bones. I love Dalton Castle, and this is all this section is for. That's like I wrote down Dalton Castle versus the Acclaimed. Of course, the Acclaimed won. They retained their titles,
which having a match after.
69 days. They never said they were having a match.
Nope, but just ding,
Dalton
ding, ding.
Castle just calls for the boys. They come out. He flocks. He gets in the ring. He's in his gear. Jamie looks at me and goes, "They're all in their gear. Are they having a match?" I was like, "They're not having a match. They didn't say anything about a match, but they're all in their gear." Like I know they're all in their gear. And then he takes the 69 days trophy, which was obviously just the largest wrestling trophy they could find at the local trophy shop, and breaks it, and the bell rings. And we have a match.
Trophy shop.
And I love it. Are there still local trophy shops? There used to be when I was a kid. Back when I was a little boy and played on Little League Baseball.
There were local trophy shops?
Yeah, it used to be. Actually, it might have been the same place as the Army-Navy store.
That's fair. That also isn't there anymore, is it?
I know. It floated away with the floods.
Jeez.
Anyways, Dalton Castle and the boys make an appearance on AEW. It has nothing.
A lot on Collision lately, which is great.
Collision, ROH, they were all over it for a little bit. Even the boys, they do tag matches with on Ring of Honor.
There's a good blend between Ring of Honor and Collision that I like. They had like Rhett Titus. They had him last week. They have a lot of that cross promotion. They have a lot of obviously Samoa Joe, who is proudly leading the way as the longest running TV champion of
Ring of Honor.
Ring of Honor,
right?
yes.
Right.
And he will be facing Limitless Keith Lee on Dynamite this upcoming week. So that I'm really excited, really looking forward to. They had you walked away for a second, but they had a great back and forth little promo talking about said match coming up because Keith is like the face of faces.
Oh yeah,
of course everybody loves him, but he snarled a little bit and got up in Samoa Joe's face. So.
He looks good lately. He hasn't been on AEW TV too much, and he came out
no, he hasn't.
Came out for a trios match with Mark Briscoe and Dustin Rhodes,
because why not?
He definitely looks like he's slimmed down a little bit. Like I'm not saying the man looks skinny and he's cut and he's ripped, but at the same time, it just seems like he's not as thick as he used to be, and he looks good.
Seems like he's gearing up. I don't know if they've made it official for final battle between Keith Lee and Shane Taylor, but that might be the win that Keith Lee could use to gain momentum for that pay-per-view.
Oh yeah, I mean, those two have a long history between the two of them too. So
They do.
Even if I'm sure Keith Lee ended up winning, but it's going to be a good match if that happens. Now, I know last week I had brought up some Major League Wrestling news with Alex Hammerstone requesting his release from the promotion in a little bit, I guess not news, but an upcoming match. Matt Cardona will be taking on Mance Warner in a rubber match between the two of them. And it's going to be a loser leaves the company match. So that means either Matt Cardona or Mance Warner is going to be leaving MLW. The reason why I bring this up is Matt Cardona has also been interacting with his wife, Chelsea Green, a lot on social media, specifically X, and commenting here and there on WWE-related things.
Help me get my job back, things like that. I wish I was working at WWE right now.
There's been a couple of times where he's commented on the return of him to WWE, and although he's never specifically said he would or is going, he has certainly said that he would be a fool to not consider it. And with his wife, Chelsea Green, being recently signed, it would make sense that there's enough hype, and we had brought this up, that there's enough hype behind Matt Cardona.
Sure. Another social media star that you can basically say, is he Logan Paul? No, but he has a certain group of individuals that follow him ever since he's been on the independent scene, and I don't know if that would pan well into him transitioning to WWE, but it brings, like I said, another group of people that maybe wouldn't care too much about what's going on in WWE.
He might be that ticket to WWE's connection for that different type of wrestling fan that leans more towards like Major League Wrestling and GCW and AEW at times. It might be one of those to where, because Vince McMahon's on the out, he's no longer involved, as far as we know, with creative. I mean, this might be one of those things where people in creative are looking at it like, well, it does work to an extent somewhere. This style of wrestling. I'm not saying that we're going to see death matches, but the harder hitting style of stuff that Matt Cardona has become known to be as the deathmatch king. Maybe WWE is looking at it and going, okay, maybe there's some value here. He's obviously got something if he's making all of this money doing independence and being as big of a star. There's something to the method of his madness.
There is.
And maybe WWE might be wanting to tap into that.
I just feel like there's so much to lose. He's got his own podcast, obviously. He's doing his thing with the action figures and stuff.
Right.
There's a lot to that. Can you keep all of that if you're in the WWE? And you can't be Matt Cardona, that's your real name. So do you come back as Zack Ryder? And
Cody Rhodes, that's his real name.
Cody Rhodes,
Roman Reigns?
Roman Reigns, that's not his real name.
No, that isn't his real name.
Definitely not his real name. Cody Rhodes, it's also not his real name, but he owns the rights to it.
I believe so,
maybe they gave him a kind of a special thing for that particular reason, but it's not his real name.
The boys in the OC, they're same thing. They've got their names they've used across numerous promotions. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm just saying that it is a possibility that he could use his name still. I know damn well he wouldn't go back as Zack Ryder.
Right.
Like, he's made that very, very clear.
You couldn't do that.
Although, I've
the right amount of money, maybe
I was about to say, I've made that joke, because we enjoy Serpentico. Serpentico is one of my favorite wrestlers on AEW for a lot of reasons. But I've always made the joke that if AEW needs somebody that needs to go out in the middle of the ring and gets his ass stomped every single week, and I bring Serpentico up because every time we've ever seen him wrestle, that's 99% of the time what happens. But
he knows how to lose, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've always made the joke, pay me right and make it worth my while, and I'll be the biggest losing dude on AEW. It doesn't matter to me in the least bit. WWE, same thing. GCW, same thing. Like, I'll be a jobber. Like, it don't matter to me. You pay me the right way, I'll do whatever you need me to do.
Yeah, so what would they be willing to pay him to do this for? It'd be silly not to find out what your options are.
Could you imagine a 4-year deal, the multi-million-dollar deal as Zack Ryder, and you just go out and you act like a fool the entire time? Like, there you go. There's a couple mil. Your wife's doing her thing and looking good,
right?
and
travel together. You know? There's something there. There's something to it.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that we're going to see Matt Cardona in WWE tomorrow morning or tomorrow night at Raw, but again with the changing of the guard and creative, with focusing on different talent that hasn't been through the same churn over and over again in WWE.
There's a possibility. There's something there for sure. So before we get into the main event of Collision, which is the last thing we want to cover before the matches for this upcoming week, we would definitely like to take a moment to talk about something quite interesting. Simon Miller making his Impact debut against, who is it? Joe Hendry. That was a really fun match. He's a really great heel, Simon Miller. I know that you've told me before. He said that he's
seen interviews.
Really
he absolutely loves
into it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you know who Simon Miller is, at Simon Miller 316, he is I guess, internet personality. He's on What Culture doing his ups and downs. He just opened up his own YouTube called Kayfabe News. I haven't looked into a lot of it, but I think it's going to be a lot like The Onion, but with wrestling.
It's fun.
He's just a generally good guy. I enjoy his content. He makes Jamie and I laugh on a weekly basis.
And he's not biased towards the companies. He's equal opportunity towards all wrestling is good wrestling. Right. Same thing as what we try to promote. It doesn't matter what brand.
Always looking for the good in professional wrestling.
Which I really, really hope that that's what we're portraying here.
Of course, yeah. We point out some of the negatives that happen, but that's just the ups and downs of professional wrestling.
Sure.
But, just good to see a good guy get an opportunity like that. Like we talked about last week, Impact. We had brought this up last week. Impact Wrestling did a stint in the UK at the beginning or the end of October, recording a series of episodes for Impact weekly show, as well as their Turning Point pay-per-view, which was on what, November 4th or November 2nd?
I think it was the 2nd.
They streamed it on November 2nd. So he came out, did his debut. Unfortunately, Joe Hendry cheated or something and got the win over Simon Miller. But 100% great to see, just somebody good getting a good push and getting an opportunity like that. Hopefully we see more of Simon Miller on Impact Wrestling or AEW or WWE. He was one of the guards at AEW's Wembley at the beginning when I can't remember who was talking, but I loved it. Just a good little shout out to somebody we really enjoy. If you don't know who he is, look up Simon Miller, What Culture Wrestling. If you don't know What Culture Wrestling and you're listening to this podcast, I don't know how you found this podcast, but I really appreciate it. But yeah, just some good news there. But to finish off the podcast, we're going to talk about the main event of AEW's Collision. We had probably the most random four-way tag team that maybe I missed something in the weekly episodes or one of the promos or one of the Twitter posts. I don't really know. By the way, if you haven't followed us on Twitter at CAW Wrestling Pod, we tweet every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Thursday now apparently with Impact. Saturday. You think we'd be off social media as much as possible, as little as we normally are, but we try to be on there as much as we can.
But I digress.
We had your AEW Tag Team Champions, Ricky Starks and Big Bill, who still surprised they have the belt. Yep. We're teaming up with the Gates of Agony, and the four of them were taking on FTR, who lost the titles to Big Bill and Ricky, and FTR and LFI, the faction of Roosh and Preston Vance. And the match, there was nothing wrong with the match. I thought we were doing LFI as a heel faction.
Yeah, not really tagging up with
the goody good shoes, like FTR, especially against two other heel tag teams. So I don't know. I don't know what this did for LFI. I really don't know what this did for anybody. Yeah. And it
didn't seem like a main event.
And then at the end of the match, we had House of Black coming out and attacking FTR again. So the tag division just feels so all over the place in AEW.
It does.
It feels like they put the belts on Ricky and Big Bill to try and elevate them, and then I just feel like they didn't give them a platform to elevate on.
Right, like they're transitional champions, waiting for the next guys to come in, perhaps some type of, 3-4-way tag team match to see who the next contender is for the tag team belts.
But it feels like the tag team belts are an afterthought after FTR and House of Black.
I agree.
And then on top of that, after they were attacking FTR, Blackpool Combat Club runs down.
Right.
So now you have 4 separate factions in a tag match involved with one another.
Right.
You have another faction get involved after the match, and a 6th faction getting involved. So you have, I've lost track of how many people
all
are involved in this, and I don't know what we're going for. Is this FTR trying to exact revenge to get their belts from Big Bill and Ricky? Is it Gates of Agony trying to I just don't know. It was such a random. It was such a random conglomeration of wrestlers that it just felt so confusing at the end.
Did.
Like, what are we going for?
It seems like Tony Khan's going to say Battle Royal, something like that.
I mean, it's got to be something. I mean, even on the Full Gear, I don't see anything that has anything to do with anybody that had to do with that.
Tag team wise, besides the Guns, and I think that's the pre-show.
But that didn't even have anything to do with the main event of Collision, though.
No, it doesn't. So there's obviously something there that they haven't booked yet. We still have a couple weeks until we do see.
Right, we got
Gear
6
going
total
down.
shows until Full Gear. So, and they've only announced 6 matches total. 1 on the pre-show, 5 on the main show. So, I mean, I'm sure we're going to see something else added on here.
Probably a couple more pre-show matches and at least 1 or 2 more.
Hopefully, the tag team titles
matches
are put on the line for somebody.
Yeah, I hope so too. Because it's kind of like an afterthought. It really needs to be pushed towards the beginning, or not the beginning, but it prioritized.
Right.
When FCR had it, it was a very interesting thing that people were wondering what was going to happen to them. Now with Big Bill and Ricky Starks, they come out and I'm like, oh yeah, they're tag team champions.
Well, to complicate things even more, the Young Bucks won a title shot a few months ago. They had that fatal 4-way tag match, and they won that match, and it has not been mentioned since. Ever since FTR dropped the titles to Ricky and Big Bill, it has not been mentioned.
Oh, maybe it'll come back around for this exact thing for this pay-per-view.
But I'm just saying, it just throws another complication into the tag titles scene.
And they just lost the 6-man ROH title, so jump right back into the tag team division. And
they're just gonna I can't expect them to get that and then just get the titles again. We're just putting on, and I don't mean to use this we're the EVPs, but we're just constantly juggling titles off the EVPs.
Sure. Just to put over the next guy, but not really.
But yeah, I don't know what we're doing here. So it's just, I don't know, very confusing. I know we just got done talking about, we like talking about the good in professional wrestling, but sometimes just got to call out some weird stuff. Didn't really land to, maybe I'm just underthinking it. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know. Let me know at CW Wrestling Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, possibly TikTok. Working our way,
Thinking about it.
Old and in our late 30s, so TikTok's one of those things. I don't know if I have the mental capacity to understand all of a new social media platform. I'm still getting off of MySpace coding.
Oh, good God. Don't date yourself like that.
Oh, too late.
I'm going to quickly go over what is going on in WWE, at least at what we know of as of today, Sunday, November 5th. We know that we are going to have, this confused me. It showed me the graphic and I was like, didn't we just do this? There's going to be a WWE Intercontinental title, #1 contendership fatal 4-way match. Ooh, that's a
I'm pretty sure they hired Tony Khan for that
definitely. The Miz versus Ricochet versus Ivar versus Bronson Reed.
I've heard they've really wanted to start pushing Ivar as a singles competitor.
Okay.
There's been some backstage. Out, right? He's out. He had some neck fusion surgery the other day that was successful.
Okay.
But they've been impressed with Ivar, and they have said that possibly he will get a singles run out of this because he has just impressed them as a singles competitor.
Okay. I mean, it's been interesting so far, so hopefully it'll be a good fatal 4-way match. We also have, rest in peace, Akira Tozawa.
Oh, no way.
Taking on Shinsuke Nakamura.
My boy Tozawa.
With the moves.
My boy Tozawa with them 10-pound dumbbells and that pink headband. He's got this. Well, he's been learning from Alpha Academy. He's
from
been
the best.
From Otis and, Chad Gable. I'm sure Maxine
Sure, a couple
Dupree's
things
putting
for
in a couple
Maxine.
things in there,
Yeah.
but that's probably just how he walks and carries. Keeps the book on his head so he doesn't bounce.
Over on Friday Night SmackDown, we have Carlito taking on Bobby Lashley. That's all we have so far.
LWO taking on the new Hurt Business.
Yeah,
I guess, without
I guess.
MVP. I don't know what they're calling themselves yet, but they're definitely some type of little bit of a faction.
Yes.
And over on the AEW side, we don't have anything for Collision or Rampage announced yet, but on AEW Dynamite, the ROH World Television title match between Samoa Joe and Keith Lee will be happening. A singles match between Red Velvet and Julia Hart. Mark Briscoe will also be taking on Jay White. He was talking a little bit of trash at Jay
That's gonna
White,
be
said,
good.
I've beat you before, I'll beat you again. We'll also be seeing Penta El Zero Miedo will be taking on Swerve Strickland. I don't know what the beef is there. I missed that promo.
We will catch you.
But Alex
It
was
basically
talking
Alex
mad trash.
Talking, yeah, and interesting. Swerve said we both used to wear masks, so I can't see what.
Right.
Can't wait to see what's under Penta's. So there's
Run it
again,
back
we had
to
AR and Swerve. Now we have
Killshot.
Swerve and Penta. We're definitely doing a lot of Lucha Underground tiebacks.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is
Brian Cage was in that.
fantastic.
And to finish off I'm sure this will be the main event, we'll have an AEW World title match between MJF and Daniel Garcia. MJF still has not been able to get his Triple B back from
The Bang Bang
Jay
belt.
White because Jay White is your true AEW World Champion. If you hold the belt, you are the champion.
Bullshit.
That is the rules. That's why I hold the coffee cup, even though I'm pretty sure it's
You're not
still in
even
the
drinking
cabinet
out
right
of it.
now. I know. I didn't want to dirty another cup. I did all the dishes, so I just didn't want to make more dishes
I
that I
feel
already
that.
had to make.
I feel that. You got to hand wash that Dudley Boys cup.
And then we are also on the week eve of Full Gear. We have, like I said, 6 matches announced. MJF will be taking on the Guns to defend his ROH World Tag Team Championship. Hikaru Shida will be defending her AEW Women's World Championship against timeless Tony Storm.
And Luther.
And
no, he's
Luther.
not defending it. Luther.
They have changed his name to Lutha, which I love. Sting and Darby Allin and Adam Copeland with Ric Flair will be taking on Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne in a I'm Your Daddy match. That's
Yes.
not the actual match, but that should be the match. When are we going to get Christian Cage versus Daddy Ass?
Who's the daddy?
Who's
of
AEW daddy?
Oof.
Who's Daddy AEW?
They both look great, though. You got to admit.
Well, this man might be in contention as well. We have John Moxley will be attempting to thwart Orange Cassidy of his international
Are you
championship.
saying John Moxley's my daddy?
John Moxley could be anybody's daddy. He would just
If
beat
he
up.
wanted
He would
to.
just beat up your daddy and then become your new daddy. Hangman Adam Page will be taking on Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana because he swerves when he
He
drives.
does indeed
and
swerve when he
it
drives. He
is-
should really stop doing that.
Huh?
He should really stop doing that.
Oh no, apparently not. He's got a T-shirt from it now. So I mean,
yeah.
And of course, MJF pulling double duty on top of his match against the Guns in a handicap match, practically. MJF will also be taking on
Could be. He could have a partner.
right. Well, and I didn't even think about this. That's
It
going to
says
be
and TBA.
that's already one half of Bullet Club Gold, and then he's going to be wrestling Jay White for the AEW World Championship. Another quarter of the Bullet Club Gold. He's going to have a lot of shit to contend to.
He does. What if Roddy volunteered himself to be MJF's partner against the
Maxwell!
Guns?
Well, okay. I think we're forgetting that there's a group of masked individuals out there that keep popping up everywhere MJF shows up.
Right.
He also used the word pinnacle, and MJF is very
did. That
specific
was interesting.
about the words he picks in his promos. So,
Yeah, why did he say that?
well, maybe we'll find out this week. We still got 2 weeks until the pay-per-view,
Yeah, until Full Gear.
so there could be a lot of stuff developing.
I hope they touch more into this devil, masked person that either is or is not MJF. I hope it's more than
Right.
just
Do you
the
think-
flash teases.
Do you think it's MJF being catty about not knowing who this is, or do you think it's somebody that's not of MJF's hire?
The second, I think
Okay.
it's of MJF. Like, MJF doesn't have anything to do with this.
That person's just using his persona to further complicate things.
Yes, just can't figure out the reason why somebody would want to pretend to be
he's
MJF.
He's a scumbag. He's fucked everybody over his entire career as much as he can to get one up on everybody, right? You could build 1,000 storylines. I mean, they already are. Look how many people are at MJF's throat.
It's absolutely incredible.
But who would want to help him? And why? What do they gain out of it?
Yeah, is this helping him?
I mean, they attacked Jay White backstage. Mm-hmm. It didn't necessarily help MJF, but it's kind of pandered towards what he needs.
Okay.
Somebody talks shit and they get taken out all of a sudden. But at the same time, all it's done is cause problems for MJF. So maybe doing that has just been there to cause problems for MJF.
That's kind of how I took it more. But with the whole Pinnacle thing, maybe he's hinting at that he does know who it is, and maybe it is like a former Pinnacle member. Was Sean Spears?
Sean Spears hasn't been back in a... Yeah, Sean Spears, FTR, I can't remember
Wardlow,
the entire...
right?
Yeah, Wardlow, but that was just because he was with
of
MJF.
Course, guilty by
but again,
association.
it was another one of those groups that MJF was a part of the Pinnacle. Oh, Jericho was in that, wasn't he? I don't remember. There were so many iterations of it. But yeah, I mean, who knows?
Just, randomly thinking maybe it's Sean Spears. Maybe
it'd be nice to see the Chairmaster back on the TV.
Just maybe that was a good intention, trying to help out. It didn't work out.
The chairman, not the Chairmaster.
Yeah,
sorry,
Chairmaster. That sounds like a bad '80s like workout equipment that you sold to like
right
moms.
I mean, if you want, spend me $99.99 and I will send you the Chairmaster. It is it looks just like a black steel chair, but as long as you follow my dietary guidelines and exercise program, guaranteed it'll be the best. You'll have at least one ab by the time you're done.
One ab.
$99.99. Send it directly to @CAW Wrestling Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook. And I will get that sent out to you immediately. It may just come from Amazon. But you never know. I think that's going to do it. I think the coffee's wearing off.
Yeah.
We've got more Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, Impact. We said it last week. Impact's going back to TNA. Ooh, I don't know. Did we touch on the rumors of Will Ospreay going anywhere? He's been beefing with Seth Rollins
on the
lately.
Last podcast.
He's on Twitter.
Or perhaps just like planting seeds just to make things
interesting.
I mean,
I love wrestling.
I've had a couple conversations with people on Twitter over the week about, him possibly going to WWE, and, the consensus of the general fan of coffee and wrestling. We all kind of had been in agreement that maybe Will Ospreay isn't the best off in WWE, but how good
I know that's 100% the opinion here at Coffee Wrestling.
How good would it be though to have a WWE-esque, like, have the money and the funds and the stage and the platform to have a match between Ricochet and Will Ospreay? Because of course they've had plenty of matches in the past. They're really good friends. We talked about this before,
right?
But there's things I'd love to see.
But
there's people I'd love. I mean, Will Ospreay and Seth Rollins. Ooh, that would be
good.
Oh,
for sure.
But
I don't know if
I don't know if that's a good choice.
I don't know if they'd be able to capture the magic that is Will Ospreay the way that it needs to.
Also, don't think that
I don't know if the way they shoot
translate that the way that it needs to be for Will Ospreay.
But you know what? We're not a video podcast. We're an audio podcast. We should translate this to video.
Yes.
What do you think? Hit us up at CW Wrestling Pod. Tell us if we should turn this into an actual video podcast. We'll obviously always do the audio. That's what we started on. That's what we'll forever do.
That's what we have fun doing.
But we can put cameras up. I'm sure we can get a couple cameras and put our beautiful faces.
Yeah,
couple
cameras.
Couple cameras. Maybe some graphics. Put a little bit more effort into it. Let us know.
Flair.
I think that's going to do it for this episode.
Yeah, thanks, friends, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
We really do. And if you have enjoyed what you've listened to, make sure you tell your friends about Coffee and Wrestling, a wrestling podcast. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Look for us on TikTok. Who knows? I might actually make one by the end of this weekend. Make sure you follow us and talk along with us during Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, Impact, NJPW, DDT Pro, a little bit of
stuff. Soon
to be TNA. Make sure you follow me on my personal Twitter at Gunk Dudley. I don't tweet that much, but you never know. I may say something stupid. Jamie, where can they find you on the social media sphere of the world?
You can find me at a Bacon Party.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Make sure you start your week off right with a piping hot, brand new episode of Coffee and Wrestling, a wrestling podcast. We post every brand new episode Monday mornings at 4 a.m., so it's up before you. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode. episode.